Good morning. Yeah. Good morning, all.
A very good morning to one and all. The Postgraduate and Research Department of Commerce and the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of Felicitation College deems it a great pleasure to associate with each one of you through this national webinar titled Impact of COVID-19 on Investor Behavior. Let's start the session by invoking God's blessings. I request Mr. Daniel, IQAC coordinator, to lead us in prayer. Mr. Daniel. Mr. Danny?
Hello? 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 One second.
Durai sir, please unmute Danny.
Good morning, everyone. Let us look up to God in prayer. Almighty God and creator of all, we believe that you are everywhere present and we believe that you are here with us today. We thank you for bringing us all together for this knowledge dissemination and information sharing session. Lord, we ask that you be with the organizers of this program as they carry out this program. We ask that you are also, your presence is also with the resource persons who have come here to share knowledge with us, O Lord, that it may be useful for us in our future life. Lord, we thank you that you have given us this opportunity to use this platform as a platform for understanding new knowledge about new behavior that has happened because of prevailing situations. Help us to adapt to the new lifestyle that is now dictated because of the prevailing situation. Keep us safe through this situation and guide us through our lives. Lord, we ask that today's information will be a blessing to all, will be useful to everybody who has attended this webinar. We pray all of this through the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. I now request Dr. Meena, Head Department of Commerce, to welcome the delegates.
My greetings to everyone present in the national webinar on impact of COVID-19 on investor behavior, jointly organized by Postgraduate Research Department of Commerce and IQAC, Felicitation College of Arts and Science, Area, Chennai. Respected resource persons of our national webinar, Dr. S. Gurusamy, Professor, Head Department of Commerce, University of Madras, and Dr. P. Nadarajan, Professor, Department of Commerce and Management Studies, Pondicherry University, Reverend Brother Johnson Rix Dhanabal, Director and Secretary, Dr. Fatima Vasant, Academic Director, Dr. Usha Jaj, Principal, Dr. R.A. Kumari Geeta Das, Vice Principal, Faculty, Industrialist, Individual Investors. And my dear students and ladies and gentlemen, today all of us have gathered here to discuss a very important topic, the impact of COVID-19 on investor behavior. And COVID-19 pandemic is now truly global phenomenon with more than 2.6 billion people, a third of the world's population, now living under some sort of lockdown quarantine. The short-term human and economic impact is undeniable as people stay home, offices, shops close, and production stalls. Again, this backdrop, we have gathered here to learn more about this topic, where our eminent resource persons are present here for today's seminar. With this brief background, I would like to welcome you all for sharing our resource person views on this relevant topic. I also want to welcome our participants who come here from all the colleges across the state for our national webinar. To accept our invitation, I thank you again on behalf of our college. And today I would like to thank my patrons for organizing a seminar through webinar on and encouraging us. I feel very fortunate to welcome my fellow colleagues to participate in this important program. I hope you will have two most productive sessions of interesting and stimulating discussions. I sincerely wish that this webinar will be a great success, not only as a chance to share knowledge and experience in higher education, but also as the beginning of long and fruitful cooperation and friendship among fellow educators devoted to the most meaningful and worthwhile task of teaching and training your youths. You will shape our future. Thank you very much.
I now request our Vice Principal, Ma'am, Dr. Aroke Mary Geeta Das, to offer a felicitation.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Dr. Gurusamy, sir, and Dr. Nagarajan, sir. Good morning on behalf of the Petition College. We deem it a great honor to welcome both of you to this webinar, and I'm very happy that the PG Department of Commerce has taken up such a big initiative to organize such good programs which will benefit the society. As all of us know, the market reaction towards the health crisis is driven by fear and overreaction today. And the human traits is very common in the capital market. The fear is now prevailing among the investors, whether we should invest or not. So I think during this pandemic, there is a lot of human traits like fear, which has gone into the heads of the people. Today, we need to address that because we have around 25 to 35% of the investors globally. And we find that this epidemic is going to be something where we are going to have financial crisis. But all of us should understand there is a significant change and improvement in the epicenter of this virus, that is China. We have seen that it is no longer a nervous system there, but people have overcome and it has come back to a normal life. So this remains as a challenge, but this disease has spread and there is a demand now that one should be aware, prepared and cautious while taking decision. This is the need of the hour. So one should be aware, prepared and cautious in selecting and investing in the capital market. I think this session by the professors, eminent professors, will be very useful to one and all present here. And I thank the department once again for giving me this opportunity to felicitate on behalf of the management.
Thank you, ma'am. It's now time for us to begin with session one. Session one is themed as investment strategies post COVID-19. And we have a very eminent person amongst us today, Dr. S. Duraiswamy, Professor and Head, Department of Commerce, University of Madras. Before I request sir to take over, I invite Dr. Durayarasan, Assistant Professor, Department of Commerce, to introduce sir to the gathering.
Thank you, ma'am. It's my honor and a privilege to welcome our first resource person, Dr. S. Guruswamy, Professor and Head, Department of Commerce, University of Madras. Dr. S. Guruswamy has vast administrative experience spanning over several years in Madras University. He is currently the chairperson of School of Business and Management, Director of Planning and Development, Director in charge of UGC HRDC, Dean of UGC and others grants, etc. And also held important position in the past. He has over 13 years of teaching and research experience. His current area of research is banking, finance and accounting. He has successfully guided 25 PhDs and 8 are undergoing PhD currently. He has authored 16 books and co-authored 5 books and edited 10 books and for the benefit of student community. He has published over 105 research papers and has 69 research presentation to his credit. He has organized several research conferences, seminars, workshops, and orientation, etc. He has undertaken 3 funded research projects. He has also undertaken a joint research program with the National University of Research, Singapore. In recognition of his vast experience, Dr. S. Guruswamy has been awarded Academic Achievement Award in 2012 by University of Madras and the Smart Journal Lifetime Achievement Award in 2019 by Bharatidasan University. At this point, I'm proud to say that I completed my PG, MPhil and a PhD under the able headship of Dr. S. Guruswamy. Thank you, sir, for the accepting our invitation. And now I call upon Dr. S. Guruswamy to take over the session.
எழுது போடுங்க.
உங்களுக்கு அந்த ஆப்ல
ஆப்ல போடா. எழுது போடா. என்ன அப்படியே புடிச்சுங்க.
This meeting is not valid. மீட்டிங் ஐடி தான் மாமா தப்புன்னு சொல்லுது.
இதான் மீட்டிங் ஐடிமா. இந்த மீட்டிங் 844 போடு. 844
நம்பர் தப்பா இருக்கு மாமா. அதான் நம்பர் சொல்லுங்க.
844 2051
2051
4789
47
password. Right from the top. ஹலோ கேக்குதா? சரி சரி. இப்பதான் நான் மறுபடியும் லைட்டா ப்ராப்ளம் ஆயிடுச்சு. மறுபடியும் I'm just coming now. போடுதா பாருங்க. பட் எனக்கு விண்டோ தெரியலையே. இல்ல ஃபுல் ஸ்கிரீன் வரவே இல்லையா பாருங்க. இன்னொரு ட்ரை பண்ணுமாமா. ஜாயின் மீட்டிங் வருது. இப்பதான் போட்டாங்க. டபுள் கிளிக் எக்ஸிட் ஆகுது. ஃபுல் ஸ்கிரீன் இருக்குல்ல. கேட்க தம்பி. ஆமா. என்ன பண்றது? எப்படி பண்றது? இதுதான் போய் பண்ணு. சத்தம் வருது. இல்ல ரெண்டுமே இதுலதான். இல்லைன்னா வெளியே வந்துட்டு மறுபடியும் உள்ள போட்டோமா? போன்ல
Good morning to everyone. Please wait. There is a technical problem. Few minutes will start. Please wait in the Zoom.
Hello. Login பண்றேன்பா. Login பண்றேன். Hello. Durarasan, can you hear me? Natarajan, Professor Natarajan, can you hear me? You cannot hear me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can hear, sir. You can start, sir. Your session will start, sir.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. You can start now, sir.
Good morning to all of you. So I'm really excited to be here as part of the webinar on the impact of COVID-19 on the investor behavior. And I would like to at the first congratulate and compliment Durayarasan, faculty in the Department of Commerce, Felicitation College, for having taken this wonderful initiative of organizing this 1.5 hours duration webinar on the impact of COVID on the investor behavior. And I would like to also compliment the other members of the faculty of the Department of Commerce of the Felicitation College for all their efforts. And I would like to welcome my own good friend, Professor Natarajan, of the Department of Commerce, Pondicherry University. And once again, I welcome all the participants and I wish them exciting time ahead. And another 45 minutes time, I will be speaking to you about the investment strategies post-COVID-19. All of us know pretty well that COVID has become the pandemic and it has caused a lot of damage on the entire spectrum of life of an individual, of the society, of the country, on the global as a whole. And everybody is actually paying directly or indirectly a price for this COVID-19. And in fact, countries around the world are struggling to cope with, and then to manage and then to mitigate the ill effects of this COVID. And we are trying to slowly come out of this COVID impact. And in fact, people are talking about the need for living with this pandemic and the COVID. And people, many kind of experts, scientists say that we have to, it will be a permanent thing forever and it will be part of our life. And this pandemic and this COVID has caused a huge change the way people think, the way people interact with other people, the way people will come to work, for example. And therefore, even when it comes to investing also, naturally, COVID-19 has got a huge lot of impact. And therefore, it is very important and pertinent on our side to try to find out as to what is happening or what has happened to the psyche and the psychology of individuals of all spectrums, right from the salaried people, the entrepreneurs, the self-employed people, and so on and so forth. Therefore, and there has to be definitely a debate, or there has to be some sort of a talk as to how to cope with the changing behavior of the investors and what kind of strategies that they can probably have when it comes to making investments. And before I just take you through and then explain to you what kind of strategies are there for the investors to be adopted post-COVID-19, I would like to take you through the global scenario. And if you look at the global scenario, what happens is, according to the IMF has come out with a report, and it has stated, IMF Global Financial Stability Report, it is called, 2020. And it has painted a grim picture about the global financial market scenario. And it has stated in this report there has been a huge what is called destruction of the financial wealth across all categories of asset classes, right from the equities, the gold, the property, the currencies, oils, in fact, oil at the multi-year low. And this is, according to the IMF Financial Stability Report, this is going to be a huge challenge. It's going to be a huge burden on the banking sector too. And all of us know pretty well, banking sector is considered to be the backbone of any society, and for that matter, every country. And without the banking as a sector, the government will not be able to implement its policies. In fact, yesterday you had seen in the news as to how the Reserve Bank of India has come out with slashing down the repo rate again in order to pep up the lending activity, in order to provide the additional armory to the banking sector, so that they should be in a better position to lend to the crying needs of the various sectors of the economy, in order to prop up, in order to revive, revitalize, and reinvigorate the entire economic activity. But it says that the banking sector will be very much impacted because there will be a lot of delinquencies and defaults. Because economies across the globe are in in fact, they were facing a lot of downturn, and this COVID has joined the bandwagon, and you will see the damage is only getting accentuated. And in this, this is the kind of scenario we are in, and it also says there will be a spike in the widespread defaults and the borrowing cost. So what is this default? As I said, the companies, they will be finding it very difficult to manufacture. They'll be finding it very difficult to sell, and therefore the revenue generation will either get halted or will get reduced, and therefore they will have a contraction of profits, and therefore they will not be in a position to repay the debts, and therefore they will eventually be committing defaults and delinquencies, which is likely, and this is definitely is going to increase the borrowing cost. What happens is when a company, for example, faces trouble and is not able to generate revenue, let's say there are companies, for example, in various sectors, the information technology sector and manufacturing sector like the chemical manufacturing, fast-moving consumer goods manufacturing, and so on and so forth, realities, for example. So when these companies in various sectors are finding it difficult to generate revenue and face the imminent trouble of the profit contraction, and they will find themselves in a situation that they're not able to repay the debt. And this will definitely catch the attention of the credit rating agencies. We might see as to how the credit rating agencies play a part when it comes to for example, rating a company or rating, of course, we know they are rating the bond, they're rating the commercial paper, they also rate the companies, they also rate the countries. We call it a sovereign rating. And therefore they are ready to come out with a rating stating this particular company is not a good company, and therefore you will be in trouble. And therefore when this company goes to the market for borrowing, since they have got a less rating, the borrowing costs will eventually go up, and this will hurt them in the long run, and not to speak of the short run as well. And therefore the borrowing cost is likely to go up according to the IMF. And this has also resulted in the contraction of the GDP across all countries of the globe, including India. So, and of course, the equity market. And in fact, in today's 45 minutes time, as I said, I'll be talking to you about the investment strategies. More particularly, I'll be dwelling on the investment strategies as regards the equities. I'm not going to talk about the other asset classes, like, for example, the bonds or the commercial paper or the, for example, the government securities and so on and so forth. Of course, the fixed deposits, the all-time favorites are there. I'll be confining myself talking to you about the kind of strategies which you should follow. So the damage that has been caused to the psyche of the investors, because many of the shareholders, many of the equity investors have found themselves in a situation that their dreams have been shattered, the wealth have been demolished, because all the money that they have already invested through mutual funds and direct investments and so on, they've all demolished, and therefore definitely having lost so much of money, they would have had their dreams are shattered, and therefore the change in behavior is something which is inevitable to happen post COVID-19. And let me talk something about the state of the Indian economy. So India being part and parcel of the global big picture. I was talking about the global scenario. In fact, across the globe, the US, Germany, France, Italy, in fact, they were most affected, and they had experienced the historical contraction in the GDP. India being part of this global economic environment is not, cannot be away from it. And therefore it also finds itself very, very badly hit, very badly affected. And it has seen its GDP very much contracted, very much in trouble. And you could see across all categories of industries asking for a stimulus package from the government of India. In fact, the government of India has come out with a 20 lakh odd crore of stimulus and economic packages by way of reforms. In fact, the 20 lakh crore of economic package has come out with a lot of liberalization, be similar to the kind of liberalization that we had in 1991 when Manmohan Singh was there at the helm. And the government is trying to address the concerns and the needs of the various sectors of the economy, the industries and so on. It has come out with a lot of initiatives and measures trying to open up, trying to liberalize much more the Indian industrial sector. And in the process, it has also given a lot of stimulus. In fact, the Reserve Bank of India joined the government of India. It has come out with a lot of incentives, like for instance, extra days repo rate reduction. It has made available a lot of liquidity in the hands of the banking sector so that they can make it available across all categories of those who are in need of it, including the non-banking financial companies, the director, for example, the companies and so on. And the companies which are, as of now, face the trouble of the contraction in, for example, the disruption in the supply chain management. In fact, the China, which is considered to be the epicenter of the coronavirus, has seen a lot of damage having been caused to the entire global supply chain network. And in fact, many of the Indian companies, fortunately or unfortunately, they have been dependent on these Chinese suppliers for all the requirements. And this is really bad. And now they're finding it difficult to even to manage to commence their production. In fact, the government has given them all advantages. Go start their production, but they are in trouble. In fact, many of the automobile manufacturers, they are dependent on the Chinese producers for all their intermediate products, for the raw materials, for them to come to them and then for them to assemble them into a finished product. So similar such problems. In fact, the pharmaceutical companies which are in the forefront now of late, even the Trump has appreciated the Indian effort, and he's all in price of the Indian pharmaceutical industry, and he says, I love these pharmaceuticals. Even these industries, these companies are in trouble because they are dependent on the Chinese companies. And therefore, since there is pandemic, there is a supply chain disruption, and therefore the Indian companies are finding it difficult to start production, and therefore there is impediment in the production process. Although the government has come out with a lot of initiatives, programs, and to stimulate the economy, this is not happening, unfortunately. Fortunately, and you could see people crying for aid, people crying for help across all spectrum, across and unemployment is taking its toll. People are jobless, rendered jobless. People are, are being laid off. So this is again, creating all sorts of trouble across the different sectors of the society. And very interestingly, having said this, I've been painting you a great picture. I'm sorry, because that is the state of the affairs as regards the global financial market, and as regards the Indian financial market, as regards the Indian economy. And in its as a place, Indian economy has got its own place in the emerging market economies. Among the BRIC countries, it has gone its own pride of place. But still, this pandemic has caused a lot of trouble. But when, having said this, as I said, there has been a silver lining. With all the dark clouds across the horizon, you will see there is a silver lining. What is silver lining I'm referring to? See, the Indian equity investors are trying to capitalize the historical low valuations of many of the high net worth, highly valued companies. We call them as blue chip scripts. They are available at cheap valuations. And now, according to the CDSL, Central Depository Service Limited, in the last 2 months, I think March and April, there has been a spike in the number of new accounts, demat accounts we call them, demat account, number of trading accounts having been opened, it has crossed 1.2 million. And therefore, this only shows that the equity investors are back, and they always would like to take advantage of the unprecedented opportunity that has been made available, that has been created by this unprecedented event, the pandemic. And that is not something to be worried about. That is something to be celebrated. And that is what I'm going to talk about. So when it comes to investors, all of us know that we have different types of investors. You have the small investors, you have the high net worth investors, you have the foreign institutional investors, you have the government as a sovereign investors. You have, for example, value investors, and there are speculative investors, and you have, for example, short-term investors, long-term investors. So we have, and I'm going to suggest some techniques or some strategies as to as to how these different types of investors can make better use of the kind of facility, the opportunity which is being made available by the Indian equities at this point of time. And there is also, I would like to, at this juncture, point out the report of the McKinsey report and the EY report. And they also acknowledge the fact, similar to the IMF Global Financial Report, which is 2020, the McKinsey as well as the UI report, they also acknowledge the fact that there is bound to be a change in the behavior of the investors, more particularly the equity investors, the way they will think about the economy, think about the company, think about the value, think about value investing will undergo a huge lot of change. Different, that's what the people say. And this is not the end of the story. At the end of the day, this is not the end of the story. In fact, in 1930s, we had Great Depression. In fact, you would know as to how these twin institutions, global institutions, for example, the World Bank and the IMF, emerged out of the calamity that the entire world faced immediately after the end of the Second World War. They wanted to revitalize, they wanted to reconstruct, they want to resurrect the entire global economy. And therefore, the people around the world, the global leaders around the world, they congregated and they envisioned and they wanted to bring about two global institutions primarily to help reconstruct the war-ravaged economies. And now you could see as to how these two twin institutions have come to provide all sorts of assistance and facilities to countries around the globe. Similar such thing is going to happen. It is not something which will mark the end of the story. So this is, for example, as I said, 1930s, we had a global recession, for example, global recession. And we also had the global financial crisis, 2007-8, and we emerged out of it. And to 1991 also, we had Indian economy in particular had the difficulty, and we emerged victorious out of that particular predicament. So therefore, this is again a cycle which has now come to provide the Indian equity investors a wonderful lifetime opportunity for them to find value and search value in the Indian equities and then to make investments. So again, before I go talk to you about the investing strategies, I'll spend some time as to why the Indian equities are more important. Why should you give importance to pay attention to the Indian equities? India as a country is the dominant country, is the most populous country next to China. It remains dominant because people used to capitalize on the demographic strength of the Indian economy. People used to consider India as a demographically a strong country. That's why people from all across the globe, they used to come to India, invest in India, and then they distribute in India, and they make a lot of money in India. And therefore, India will remain, definitely will continue to remain as the most dominant emerging country, will be the most powerful country, definitely will be the powerhouse of the entire global economy. I'm very much confident about it. And therefore, this being the case, fundamentally, therefore, this offers, of course, this is only a temporary trouble phenomenon that we're facing. So post-COVID-19, things will become fantastic, things will become fine. And therefore, this offers a wonderful investment opportunity. Oil. India is the largest oil consuming country, and therefore oil at historical low provides all the ordinary which is required for the country. And then with the low oil prices, because when oil prices are low, the outgo by way of foreign exchange will be less. And therefore, this is going to give you the advantage for the Indian economy, for the Indian, those who govern the Indian economy, to find more resources to be utilized, to be spent for the development of the country as such. So now coming to the last leg, I think I should be spending about another 10 minutes time. And both of us, Professor Natarajan and myself, will be taking the questions from the audience, from the participants, as suggested by Dr. Durayarasan after both of us complete the presentation. Now, I'll be giving you some idea as to how to go about the investment. In fact, I would like to, at this juncture, bring you to knowledge the very famous quote from the very famous world-acclaimed individual investor, Warren Buffett. I'm only referring to the gentleman who is close to 90 years old and who has made a lot of wealth, multiplied his wealth manifold, and used to say, you should be greedy when others are fearful, and you should be fearful when others are greedy. Now, people are fearful about everything, fearful about the life, fearful about the economy, fearful about the society, fearful about everything. But at this juncture, I would say, with all audacity, that you should be convincingly be greedy, and then take a call and then make an investment in equity, because equity historically considered to be a time-tested instrument of investment for the people to make money, multiply money, manifold, become a millionaire, become a billionaire. So what he says, we should always choose companies with good value. What is this value? Good value in the sense, what is the value of a company? How do you measure the value of a company? The expected future growth of the company. So you should be in a position to, of course, with all the techniques that we have, you should be in a position to make an estimate as to how much the company will have the value in terms of the estimated cash flows. You know pretty well, as students of commerce, as teachers of commerce, we also know very well that the cash flows, the free cash flows of a company is all the more responsible for giving the competitive edge for the company. So what goes into determining the cash flows, especially free cash flow for a company? What parameters, what will influence? Definitely the company that you are choosing, the business of the company that you are choosing will be the kind of the business which should be relatively monopolistic in nature. Reliance, for example, Jio. I'm not suggesting that everybody should go invest in Jio. In that case, it becomes most unpopular and therefore unprofitable for you to make money. So I'm just only suggesting that you should pick up such companies where there is relatively free cash flow available in the near future, and that is determined by the competitive advantage the company enjoys, the consumer patronage, for example, and there is something called the intrinsic value. See, another important, even the Warren Buffett always believes on the fact that a person an investor should invest in a company's, in a script, for example, which commands the low intrinsic value. And how do you compute the intrinsic value? In fact, as students of commerce, we are popularly familiar as to how you will compute the intrinsic value of a share. Intrinsic value of a share. Similarly, but it is not the similar way you calculate the intrinsic value of a share. The intrinsic value of a business of a company must be computed by taking into consideration the estimated cash flow. I just now talked about the free cash flow. So if you spot a company with a free cash flow, and if you make an estimation of that, and then if you calculate the net present value, or if you find out the present value of those estimated cash flows, and then find out the net present value, that is exactly the intrinsic value. You identify the companies, you just marshal all the companies and then rank the companies. You go for the company which commands the lowest intrinsic value, I mean the net present value, and that is the company you should invest in. And definitely never forget to be a long-term investor. So you should not be a speculative investor. You be a value investor. If you happen to be a long-term investor, of course, you will always reap the benefits of compounding. As students of commerce, teachers of commerce, we always appreciate you of the fact that it is the compounding which gives the advantage of what is called the value addition to the stock. Therefore, buy a stock, forget about it for about 5 years' time. You should have a time horizon of 5 years for your money to multiply, for your share to appreciate, for you to make money, multiply money. Therefore, man, remember that you should become a long-term investor and not the short-term investor. Short-term, there will be a lot of trouble, a lot of headwinds will be there, but do not get perturbed by these headwinds. Be futuristic, be optimistic. Then we always say, when it comes to stock market ratios, we popularly believe in two important ratios. One is the price earning ratio, PE ratio, PE multiples. So this is nothing but the multiplication of the underlying value. See, the market price divided by the earnings per share. So how many times the market price is reflecting the fundamental, the denominator, for example, the earnings per share. Is it reflecting 20 times? Is it reflecting 50 times, 100 times, or 10 times, 2 times? So therefore, choose a company with low PE multiple. The assumption is, again, is an assumption. I'm not saying with authority. Because the assumption is the low PE company is a company which will offer you the advantage of the highest possible increase in market prices. When compared to its underlying value of the earnings per share, the assumption is it is not fully reflected. The underlying worth value of a company is not fully reflected in the market price, and therefore there is a possibility if you invest in such low PE companies that you must be in a position to multiply your investments manifold. But there is a risk in it. A low PE company might be a company which may not be commanding the right value in the market because of its underlying nature of business. And therefore it is not only because, for example, in the Unilever, if you look at it, the PE multiple is close to 60, 70, 80, and so on. Colgate-Palmolive, for example. So these are the companies which command very high PE, but still people are investing money in such companies. Why? It is a paradox. People are not chasing stocks with low PE. Just because PE is low, you need not invest, but you should take a careful consideration, careful call when it comes to taking into consideration the PE as a criterion. So high PE multiple might be an advantage for you. Low PE multiple will still give you the advantage of multiplying your money, but you should, while considering the low PE, please consider how good the company is, how good the business of the company is. So that is what you should consider. Again, yes, corporate governance. People are talking about, nobody can forget about the Satyam episode. In fact, Satyam, interestingly, tragically, I should say, Satyam was a recipient of the Good Corporate Governance Award. Very, very interestingly, unfortunately, immediately after getting this award for best corporate governance, within 2-3 months' time, the company went into default, went into, for example, committing all sorts of scams. It went into the history of scams. Everybody knows about it. And therefore, it is no guarantee that outwardly, how a company is governed. So maybe on the face of it, you will see the company is well governed like the Satyam, but inside you will have a lot of malfeasance activities going on. It's a tough call, of course. Therefore, but of course, it remains a fact that as an ace investor, as an intelligent investor, I would want everybody to be very carefully considering the governance practices which are in place, which are practiced by companies. That will go a long way, giving you an edge as a assured investor. Definitely a good governed company, a company which has a good corporate governance, definitely is likely to deliver best results, and therefore you can take best advantage of it when you become part of it. So ultimately, one final thing, you have to be on your own. I believe in being a self-investor. Do not be dependent on others. When you are educated, when you are enlightened, when you have all the powers in you, when you have all the knowledge about the market, the financial market, the capital market, the share market, the companies, the shares, what prevents you from being a direct investor, self-investor? Have your own trading account, have your own Demat account open, and then you can park your money, and then you can keep buying share either on your own or you can through your broker. Don't go to a mutual fund. I believe that's what my humble and sincere suggestion. I don't think you will ever make good money because close to 20% or even 25% of your money goes to be taken by the mutual fund managers, for service charge and so on and so forth. Therefore, be an investor of your own. Be a self-investor. Be a confident investor. Be a smart investor. Be a successful investor, and be an equity investor. So with these words, I conclude my presentation, and would like to thank Dr. Durai Harrison for giving me this wonderful opportunity. I would like to thank all the participants for listening to me, and I would like to thank my friend Professor Natarajan for joining for this wonderful webinar, and I would like to thank the management of this great college. And we look forward to similar such programs in future, and wish you all the best. Congratulations to all the participants. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much. And as I said already, myself and Professor Natarajan will be taking questions from your side, and that will be moderated by Dr. Durai Harrison. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much. Bye now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation.
Duryarasan, audible irundha?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Fine. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Shall I remain here or?
Sir, you be on the line, sir, please.
Okay, fine. I'll be on the line. I'll be on the line.
The next, ma'am, Navajyoti ma'am, please take a section.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving us a positive perspective of investment, especially in this juncture where everybody had been so concerned about what is going to happen post-COVID. So thank you very much for giving us your valuable suggestions on investment. Now we move on to session 2. We have an eminent speaker amongst us, the resource person for session 2, Dr. K. Natarajan. I request Mrs. Mary Louisa, Assistant Professor, Department of Commerce, to introduce Dr. Natarajan to the gathering.
Mary Louisa, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Now, it is a privilege that I welcome Dr. Natarajan, Professor, Department of Commerce, Pondicherry University, our speaker, to share his valuable ideas on revelations of COVID-19 to further enlighten our existing knowledge on the same. In this stipulated time, it is too stringent to even complete Sir's profile for his introduction. So here are the highlights. Sir has 32 years of teaching experience. To say about his research experience, Sir has guided MPhil thesis, PhD thesis, and he has also has also guided MCOM research projects for more than 200 members. As a UGC major project, he has done one ICCR major research paper also. Sir is also serving as a doctoral committee member in university teaching departments. To say about his research interest, it includes entrepreneurship development, finance, and much more, logistics, supply management, implications of economic policies, and much more. To say about the research publications, he has published 85 research papers. He has also held various administrative responsibilities. He is also holding so even now. Then he has also holds membership in various special committees like Academic Performance Committee, Chief Superintendent for the conduct of DDE examinations, serving as member in faculty recruitment committees of different South Indian universities, university nominee in the Entrepreneurship Development Cell, Pondicherry Government, member steering committee for SLAS Pondicherry, subject expert for interviewing and validating UPE research project at University of Madras. To say about his examination related responsibilities, Sir is a BOE for PhD thesis evaluation of different universities at the national level. He is a member in Alagappa University, Annamalai University, Pondicherry University, Bharatiyar University, Coimbatore, SP University, Tirupati, Bangalore University, etc. He is an external member examiner for PhD progress in review meeting, served as practical examiner for BCom and MCom computer application courses of colleges in Tamil Nadu, University Observer, additional superintendent in the conduct of BEd examination, observer for UGC NET examinations and DDE examinations of Pondicherry University. He is also a chief examiner of the Board of Examinations of MBA, HRM and Finance, DDE examinations. The books published by him includes edited 4 books and study materials prepared and supplied for various universities, goes to 32. As an extension and outreach academic activities, Sir has as well as attended and conducted international conferences, national conferences, workshops, seminars, invited talk, and he also holds membership in Board of Studies of Alagappa University, VIT, Tiruvallur University, Bharatiyar University, Kerala University, etc. Membership in editorial boards also he holds. To say about his awards and achievements, he has obtained National Award title Lifetime Achievement Award from United Writers Association on given by the UGC, and he also holds a Best NSS Officer Award for the year 2005 in Alagappa University. And now I call upon Sir to take over the session. Thank you.
Good morning, one and all. Am I able to hear? Good morning, one and all. The respected principal of this great institution, Partition College of Arts and Science, ADAR, the management committee members, the principal, HOD of the Department of Commerce of Partition College, and the coordinator of the program, Dr. Duraisamy and Daniel Felix, and other faculty members, and my dear beloved friend, Dr. Gurusamy, Professor Head, Madras University, Madras, and the online viewers. Good morning, one and all. So really, I'm happy to take part in this one-day national webinar on impact of COVID on investor behavior. So first of all, I extend my hearty congratulations to the college for organizing a webinar on the theme impact of COVID on investor behavior. So we are in a totally a downturn situation, and the outbreak of COVID-19 is bringing about epochal changes in our lives, and we have a serious impact on the way we live, buy, sell, and market the product and services. So at this juncture, having a discussion about the stock market, that too, the behavioral aspect of the stock investors is very much pertinent. And when the whole economy, world economy has been locked down, under lockdown, and suffering a lot, what is the role about stock market? Why we have to worry about stock market? Why we have to worry about stock market investors? That may be because it is not a priority category, but even then we have to discuss, because the stock market contribute a lot for the societal development, and that's why it is very much essential to have a threadbare discussion about the stock market, that too from the investor's perspective. So I would like to, my topic, talk of the topic is the title as Revelations of COVID-19. Revelations of COVID-19 to retail investors. Retail investors. This is the title what I gave for my talk. There's a revelation of COVID-19 to retail investors. Okay. So before getting into the retail investors' behaviors and the revelations of COVID and all, let's have a brief outline about the COVID, and then stock market situation, and then the changing behavior of the investors, with that too the retail investors, and then what are the biases, behavioral biases that are taking place in the present day context, and how they can overcome as by taking into account the revelations of the COVID-19. So this is the brief content of my talk. And friends, all of you know very well this outbreak of COVID-19 is giving all kinds of hardship to all sections of the society. I used to call or consider it as a invisible enemy. This COVID is an invisible enemy. By this kind of situation, we cannot avoid or overcome. So it's really a big disaster, and which is hampering or hitting the world economy, and has adversely affect most of the businesses big time, and the retail investors in particular. And this crisis in the economy has been manifested amply in the stock market, which have witnessed the deep corrections across the world. With respect to the COVID-19, the COVID-induced volatility in the stock market has wiped off more than 50 lakh crores of wealth of investors. So it has wiped off more than 50 lakh crore wealth of the investors. And the Indian Volatility Index, VIX, has risen to the high of 86.84. And this COVID-19 has a serious impact on the way we live, buy, sell, and market products. So with this background information of the COVID-19 as a disaster, how it affects the stock market, especially the investors, or what the investors have to do. First of all, friends, Dr. Gurusamy has highlighted about the stock market trend, and ultimately he concluded his speech by telling that whoever be the investors, you have to invest on your own. So that is his message. I also endorse it by means of giving certain guidelines or steps or do's and don'ts, what to do while going for investing. And thereby, as investors, we may be able to fulfill our responsibilities. Many times, we are neither exercising our rights nor fulfilling our responsibility. That is taking place both in the consumer market and stock market. So that's why, as a consumers, we are also being deprived, though we are telling that we are living in the market economy, consumers are the king. We are unfortunately, we are unable to exercise it. Similarly, in the investor market also, we are not exercising our rights properly, and we are many times we are not fulfilling our obligations also. At this juncture, this COVID-19 strongly indicate that how to understand the situation and how to act upon it, how to survive, how to coexist in such a kind of tough situation. So that's why I gave a title Revelations. Fine. So with respect to stock investor, stock in the stock market, there are two types of investors. One is the retail investor, the institutional investor, and a retail investor. All of you may be knowing that institutional investor and the retail investors. Institutional investors, though they are holding 70% of stock trading, around 65 to 70% of stock trading, these retail investors are holding nearly 38 to 40%. So which seems to be in the last 10 years, really the stock market has seen an evincing interest from the side of retail investors. So when we look at the compound annual growth rate of the retail investors entry into stock market over the period of last 10 years, it comes to around 11%. So which is really a significant size. That means as individuals, we are ready to make an equity investment, or we are interested, we are evincing interest in making equity investment. Though it has, it's a risk-some attitude. So we are ready to take that risk, calculated risk, and invest. And that's why the retail investors participation in the stock market has been increasing in the last 10 years, which shares the overall annual growth rate of 11%. Who is retail investor first? Retail investor is one who applies or bids for securities of or for a value of not more than 2 lakhs, not more than 2 lakhs in an IPO, and buys and holds shares worth less than 2 lakh in stock. There is no limit with respect to commodities. As far as commodity is concerned, they can invest to any extent. So this is the limit given by this is the definition given by the SEBI for retail investors. Retail investor is one who buys and sells the equity shares, commodities, commodity contracts, mutual funds, ETF, exchange traded funds through the traditional and online brokerage firms or other types of investment accounts. In the last 3 to 5 years, retail investor number is increasing. So with respect to the retail investor, they can enter into stock market or they can make equity investment, either a direct route as well as indirect route. There are two routes, direct route and indirect route. Under both, even in the lockdown situation, we have seen a kind of significant improvement in under both the route of entry of retail investors in the stock market, direct route as well as indirect route, through provident fund organization, mutual funds, then insurance, and ETF, exchange traded funds. So people are evincing interest in coming to equity by the individual investors. So this lockdown gives a lot of ample free time for the individuals, and that's why they are able to study the stock market situation and understand the technicalities of it, and thereby they may be able to make their own prudent investment decision to some extent when comparing to yesteryears. Because all the time as individuals, we are telling that we are busy. So I have money, but I may not be in a position to invest. So naturally, I have to depend on my own investment brokers, stock brokers. I have to depend on the advisors. Many times, the advisors are not giving their advice in the right perspective. And gone are the days. Even in the corporate management, you would have seen that agency approach was adopted. Agency approach was adopted, with which the so-called management of the company, they have to work for the interest of the shareholders. So that concept has gone. Now we are very particular in carrying out or working for fulfilling, corporates are very particular in fulfilling stakeholders management. So when again, as a management members, many times they are shirking their responsibility, and they are undertaking switchings many times, and thereby the ignorant investors are being trapped. So that's why it is not advisable to make a investment decision with the help of others in and out. So as investors, we have to look into the nitty-gritty of equity investment and understand the current situation, know the technicalities, and then have the capability of understanding the situation and accordingly make investment. So that's why this deliberation on the retail investors, especially in the context of COVID-19, helps a lot for the individual investors to get into the nuances of stock market. So that's why I gave the title like this. And when we say the behavior, whatever be the lockdown situation, as a people, as an individual, we may behave. I gave you a meaning of the term retail investor and all. As an investor, they are also evincing interest, both direct route as well as indirect route, and their contribution is increasing. And as he said, the retail investors in the present day contest, they constitute more than 1.2 million new accounts were opened during the lockdown period of 1 year, especially April 2019 to April 2020. Nearly 1.2 million new accounts were opened. This has been expressed by Dr. Gurusamy also in his speech. And then an online trading volume has also spiked by 53%. 53% spiked by 53% in April 2020. And this the existing equity investors, though they are the market is lashing, they're losing money there on their portfolios or investing markets in their average their buying prices. And the new breed of investors is very keen to invest on equity shares when the market is at their low. And that's like another classical example for this is SBI card. When the SBI card got listed, we saw nearly 80% of the jump in the account opening. 80% of the jump in the account opening, which is mostly done by the so-called new breed of investors. So most of these new account holders are the millennials or the first-time investors. So what I'm saying is, in spite of the lockdown, with respect to the retail investors, they are evincing interest, especially the first-time investors or new breed investors. They are developing a regular investment habit. They have developed regular investment habits, and they are able to showcasing their patience, honestly, harnessing the willingness to stay for longer. So that means they are ready to hold, ready to stay in the market for a long time. That means they prefer long-term investment rather than doing day trading and short-term marketing. And again, when we look into the mutual fund, the investment through mutual fund under a SIP scheme, it has also witnessed an upward graph in the lockdown situation. So what I'm telling you is, in the lockdown situation, the equity market is facing both plus or minus the positive side as well as negative side. So we have to look into that. That's why I wanted to highlight about the status or the major shift in the behavior of the investors in the present contest. The new breed of investors is very keen to invest on equity when the market is at its low, and they are approaching the markets in the bottom fishing. Whether it is good or not, that we are going to tell under the revelations after some time. Okay, then to put in a nutshell, as an investor, so we have to have certain qualities, or we have to consider on certain key areas. This is what COVID-19 advocates us. As an investor, we must be cost conscious, and we have to have orientation, and we have to have the value offerings, and we have to give more weightage to value offerings. And then we have to be innovative. As investors, we have to be innovative, for which we have to keep on collecting information, gathering, analyzing it in a different manner, and thereby innovative thinking will come, and with which we can make a prudent investment. And then at the end, the D stands for digital. As an investor, the equity investor, retail investors must be a digital savvy. With respect to institutional investor, there is no problem, because they have their own wings of a team to look into the investment market, collect the data, do analysis, and they have a research team, and that's why they may be able to identify the right portfolio, can evaluate the portfolio in an effective manner. But whereas all those things should be done by the individual investors on their own. That's why they must be a computer savvy or the digital savvy. So when you look into these 5 letters or 5 key areas, you can get the word COVID, COVID, cost consciousness, then orientation, value offerings, innovation, and digital. So as a retail investors, we have to inculcate, or we have to inculcate the exposure on these key areas, and thereby we can be a good retail investor, successful retail investor. Okay, fine. So many times in the situation of the disaster like COVID-19, COVID pandemic. So when we look into the behavior of the people, so that can be broadly grouped into 2 categories: good behavior and bad behavior. As investors, we are also developing good behavior and bad behavior. And which set of what are those good behavior? What are those bad behavior? Because many times we behave unknowingly. Have you asked a question ever in your life? Who am I? Have you asked a question? Who am I? Many times we won't ask on our own. But whenever there's a problem with others, we will ask a question. You do not know, who am I? So that trend should be changed. So we should understand who are we, and what are our qualities, what are our traits, how we are acting. So when you are able to diagnose your behavior, you may behave gently, you may behave reasonably good. So once when you have started behaving reasonably good, you will not come across more hardship. You will not come across more hardship. That's why at this juncture, knowing about the good behavior and bad behavior is very much essential. And because many a time the stock market is operated by all kind of the human initiative should be keenly looked into, and thereby it all behavior oriented. So when sometimes when we behave aggressively, and we are taking up bull behavior, and sometimes we are adopting the bad behavior. So here the COVID says that the bad behavior may be of six category: anger, arrogance, paralysis, then confusion, hurt behavior, and frustration. These are all some 6 behaviors. Now, anger, arrogance, confusion, paralysis, hurt behavior, and frustration. So many times in the case of outbreak, the COVID pandemic situation, so we may behave badly with respect to our stock market transaction, and we may take certain hasty decisions. Ultimately, we will be we may be trapped, and we will be losing our wealth. And that's why the anger, arrogance, paralysis, confusion, hurt behavior, frustration. And each category, I can tell the 4 or 5 sub behaviors also. And similarly, as an investor, you should know the positive good behaviors also. During even the lockdown period. In the lockdown period, how we have to be a soldier, we have to be a leader, we have to be a scientist, we have to be a nurturer and a good citizen, and then cheerleader. So these are all certain some of the behaviors, good behaviors in the midst of a lockdown situation. So that RML is not only for you, it is for the entire world, it is for all the population, it is for all the sections of the society. So even at this juncture, how to behave. So we have to have certain good behavioral characters. One is a soldier. So thereby we may be vigilant. We take stand, fight for resolution, and we have to be a leader. And thereby we can take the things confidently, focus on what needs to be done, and leads all for all. Leads all for all. That is very much essential. We have to lead all for all. That is the leader quality. And then scientist. As a scientist, we have to be as rational and led by facts. We are working together for a goal and all. Then nurturer. As a nurturer, we have to lend compassion, empathy, and emotional support also at this juncture. Because many times when we say stock investor or equity investor, we branded as a greedy person. So that the greediness we will come across. Even I am very particular in giving a word about the greediness by Warren Buffett after some time. So that ultimately the equity investors are being marked as the greedy people, and they are very particular in making money. And that's why we have to be a nurturer as a quality. We have to have a behavior of nurturer with which we can lend the compassion, empathy, and emotional support. And then good citizen. Then cheerleader. Cheerleader means so we have to call as a people and lift spirits and provide some levity. So thereby we can have certain good, we can learn some good behaviors and practice it in our stock market transaction. And this is with respect to the behavior in the lockdown period. We have both good and bad behavior. And because knowing both are very much essential, but practicing the good behavior helps a lot. Practicing good behavior helps a lot. Once when we know the behavior, these 2 sets of behavior, good behavior and bad behavior, we may be able to counter the bad behavior, and we could reinforce the role model, the good. We can reinforce ourselves as to role model the good. So that's why we could imbibe the good behavior with which we can reinforce that tough situation like COVID-19. Okay, fine. And now let us come to the another aspect of the talk that is behavioral bias. So there is a common notion. There's a common notion in the stock market or the equity investment is that the investors are rational. Investors are rational and make informed decision based on full information. Is it happening? Is it happening all the time? Are the investors are rational at all times? So investors are rational and make informed decisions based on full information. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm requesting you to look into that. Are we behave rationally at all times with all informed decisions with the full information? It is not at all possible. No, so that's why we have to have a pragmatic look. So when we look at it, seldom happens. It seldom seems to be the case in the real life world. So that's why a lot of behavioral biases leading to ill-informed investment decision. Many a time we are making all ill-informed investment decision, and that's why we are burning our finger in the stock market. No, many a time when you just survey the equity investors, more than 90% of the equity investors, especially the retail investors, are ventilating that I burnt my finger. I have invested 3 lakhs, 5 lakh, I lost it. Ultimately, at the end of the day, account will come to zero. So this is the typical experience of all individual investors. So that's why the rule, that the common notion of investors are rational and they make informed decision based on full information is not at all valid in the case of imperfect market condition. So this leads to this behavioral bias leads to value erosion and wealth destruction of investors. So these two things will happen. Value erosion will also take place, and then wealth destruction of investors. Wealth destruction of investors is also taking place. So for which what to do? We have to develop awareness. Developing awareness about the behavioral tendencies of investors. Developing awareness about the behavioral tendencies of the investors that stage their investment style and pattern during such time COVID-19 pandemic is very much inevitable, or it is concomitant. So we have to develop an awareness about the behavioral tendencies of investors that shape their investment style and pattern during such a tough time like a COVID-19 pandemic. No, so it is very much essential. That's why I have opted the title like this: the Revelations of COVID. What it says to retail investors, because many times they are all. I used to call the retail investors as ignorant investors, because the company can escape. Institutional investors can also make a safe play. But what about the retail investors or individual investors? Ultimately, they are in doldrum. So many a time when you look into the reason is because of their ignorance. But in the knowledge era, we cannot consider ignorance as an excuse. We should not consider the ignorance as an excuse. That's why at this lockdown period, advocates us to have a thorough understanding about the stock market operations and try to know the nuances of it, provided if you are interested in making equity investment, and that way you can make a safe game. So this behavioral biases may be in the form of some 6 connotations. One is value fixation, then avoid stereotypes, the guessing game. Many times we are making a guess based on some false evidences, and such guess will be based on such guess we are making investment decision and ultimately landing in trouble. And then know your skills. So we may know some computational skills, some mathematical skills with which we can calculate, we can foresee the risk, but ultimately the information what we are using for the analysis and arriving a decision may not be of correct, and that's why we will be landing in trouble. That's why know your skills, and don't exaggerate that I know I can make a prediction, so my prediction will hold good. And even when you are making a projective analysis of the company, when you are making a fundamental analysis and technical analysis about the scripts of the company, so we have to have a thorough knowledge and having up-to-date information and making all cross references, and thereby we may be able to make use of our skills effectively. And then loss aversion. Many times the equity investors with the thinking that I'm a loss averse. So thinking that having that aversion, or with that aversion, when they are making investment, they may not be in a position to succeed in their investment. They may not be in a position to get the expected return or better return. And then another chaos bias is the cashing in, cashing out bias. There are 6 biases I mentioned. One is value fixation, then avoid stereotypes, guessing game, know your skills, loss aversion, and cashing in, cashing out. So many times behavioral biases stemming from ill-informed decisions. How the behavioral biases happens among the equity investors? No, it is based upon the ill-informed decisions can lead to investment traps. Investment traps for a section of the investors, leading to wealth destruction and value erosion. Destruction and value erosion. So in order to, at the end, I would like to conclude a message. And before that, now these are all the behavioral biases. So having seen the bias, to overcome the bias, it is very much essential to get into these some tips, or what is the revelations of the COVID. The spread of COVID-19 has created a lot of wounds in the market. That is a mold the market, mold, M-O-U-L-E-D, mold the market. It has created a big scar or wound. And the investors are willing to the full-blown bear market, witnessing the present day context. And the COVID lockdown situation, almost all the investors are witnessing a full-blown bear market is prevailing. Full-blown bear market is prevailing. to safely maneuver the finances or investment through this challenging phase. Adhering the COVID-19 regulations are highly inevitable. So we have to adhere, or we have to stick to the regulations of COVID-19 at this challenging situation. Thereby, we may be able to manage our finance and investment safely. So for which here I would like to tell you about the 10 points, 10 revelations, 10 commandments under the two categories. One is called do's and another is called don'ts. Okay. So here under the situation like the COVID lockdown. So as an individual investor, as a retail investors, we have to have certain things, certain do's. We have to adopt certain do's or abide by certain do's. One is create financial cushion. So as a retail investor, before actively taking part in equity market trading, so you have to create a cushion. You have to create a cushion by means of keeping cash balance, so as to meet out this lockdown period. No, at least you have to keep money for 6 months at your hand, and thereby you may be able to meet out your pressing obligations. So that's a create a financial cushion. And then whenever you have some pending dues, it is better to clear those pending dues. This is coming under the first dues. One is the first dues, which is nothing but create a financial cushion. As a retail investors, we have to work for creating a financial cushion first. Then number two, we have to reassess our risk tolerance. Already we may have exposure in the equity investment, but what about our risk tolerance? Whether it has to be reviewed or not, or reassess. So finding yourself in the grip of the bear market, many times we are assessing our risk tolerance capacity at good times. But when untoward situation like COVID-19 lockdown comes, then only we could understand that whether the risk tolerance capacity of us is sufficient or not. So that's why we have to reassess the risk tolerance capacity. So that is the second thing to be done. And then third thing is keep the war chest ready. Keep the war chest ready. As equity investors, if you are really interested in making equity investment, in such cases, as you have to keep ready with the war chest ready. Means so don't wait that the whole terminal lockdown situation will come to an end and then we can get into it. So it is not like that. Once when the market sees the revival, sees the recovery, starting to see the recovery, we can start making investment. Even now, we can make investment provided when we have a sufficient money. We can make an investment by preferring long-term period or by preferring the mutual fund investment route and other thing. So this is nothing but keep the war chest ready. Suppose when we are waiting till the turmoil comes to an end and then think of making investment, we will be missing the bus and thereby we will be losing our earnings. So that is the third important thing to be done. That is keep the war chest ready. That means you must be ready to enter into stock market whenever it sees a recovery situation. Though don't wait till it is fully recovered. Okay, so that's a saying. No, those who are willing to take bath in a sea, they are citing a reason that let the tide stops, I will get into the sea. When the tide stop, it will not happen. So that's why when the sea is so erratic, we may not be in a position to navigate into it. So it is better to keep away. It is better to keep away from entering into sea. But once when it comes to normalcy slowly, so the moment we can enter. Similarly, we have to keep the war chest ready. And then the stick to fundamentals. This is again very much essential for all prudent investors, individual investors. All prudent individual investors, you have to fundamentally strong businesses sail through. That Gurusamy has also highlighted about the Reliance and other companies. So while going for making an equity investment, that means to some extent they are all fundamentally strong and they have a goodwill and with which we can rely upon their equity and then make investment on that. And don't be adventurous and bet on relatively unknown businesses. So these are the things we have to do when you are making investment on a stick to fundamentals. That is the fourth important thing to be done as COVID messages. And the fifth one is get the financial plan in place. As whoever be the investors, we have to have a plan, financial plan. So investing should be a part of the process over time. So it cannot take place as you like. So we have to have a time in a phased manner and then make an investment. Absence of a plan create a greater risk and it makes us to make a wrong decision. So that's why wrong decision, many times rash decisions and wrong decisions are being taken due to want of time or due to, and we are assuming greater risk beyond our limit or beyond the calculated risk will be taken because of lack of plan. So absence of plan has to be eradicated. That means we have to get the financial plan in place, and for which again we have to look into the health checkup. We have to make a health checkup up to date, up to be done, health checkup to be done on our financial goals. Thereby we can make a plan or review the plan then and there. These are all the 5 things to be done as envisaged by COVID-19 lockdown. So one is create a financial cushion. Then number 2 is reassess the risk tolerance. And number 3 is keep the war chest ready. Number 4, they stick to fundamentals. Number 5, get the financial plan in place. These are all sort of things to be done by the retail investors as advocated by this situation, this normal situation. And similarly, as investors, we should not do certain things. Even in this pandemic situation, it is better to avoid certain things. So here I would like to point out a few points. Number 1, don't try to catch market bottom. Don't try to catch market bottom. That is a position. Many times as a wise investor, we have to position ourselves even after the market makes a move upwards. Then bottom fishing will burn our fingers badly. So that's why it is not advisable to wait for the logic to adopt a strategy of catching the market at bottom. Catching the market, but normally there's a rule, thumb rule: buy at low, sell at high. Buy at low, sell at high. So that is a thumb rule for investors. But when we say buy at low means we need not wait up to the bottom. That is a bottom market bottom. So that's why bottom fishing will burn our finger badly. So that's why it is better to avoid that. Then number 2, don't review funds now. Don't review funds now. As investors, you have a portfolio. No, you and many times having framed the portfolio as a curious investors, we used to review the portfolio then and there, accordingly make changes in the portfolio so as to make it as an optimal portfolio. So because out of the curiosity, we are very particular in changing our portfolio then and there. But at this juncture, it is not advisable to review the portfolio immediately. So avoid reviewing your portfolio at this point so as not to form a misguided opinion. Many times we are making a misguided opinion around the situation. That's why it is better to avoid. Don't look at portfolio performance. Don't exit for lack of return. So in the lockdown period, return may be less or the lack of return may be there. So for which we should not take a hasty decision of exiting. Exiting, come out from the market. So that's why the second point says that don't review funds now. And then similarly, don't change investing strategy. Don't change investing strategy. So overwhelmed by panic, investors are prone to abandon years of investing principles. Many times as investor, I may have a mindset. I may have my mindset based on certain values and principles. Such values and principles may be eroded when I am adopting a new strategy at this situation. That's why don't change investing strategy. Suppose when you are in the field for the last 4 or 5 years, you may have a mindset. What are all the criteria to be adopted for selecting a script and how much we have to allotment. So for all the things you have made a mindset, and that mindset should not be changed at this situation immediately. That is nothing but because of panic. Due to over the panic, as investors, we are prone to abandon years of investing principle. That will this kind of a fickle nature undermines our long-term strategy. We may have a long-term strategy. That focus will be losing away now when we are making a change in the investment strategy. And then the another thing not to be done is don't get overly defensive. Don't get overly defensive. Many people, many time the people they try to be ultra cautious. Don't turn ultra cautious, and don't succumb and press the panic button. Don't succumb and press the panic button. Avoid the rash decisions and exiting. Avoid the rash decision and exiting. And these are things to be done under the fourth point. That is, don't get overly defensive. When we are trying to make overly defensive, certainly we will be ultra cautious and we are pressing the panic button and we are making a rash decision. Ultimately, we will be in turmoil. And then the fifth one not to be done is don't do nothing at all. Don't do nothing at all. Don't do nothing at all. So as in the long-term period, virtually speaking, many of us are telling that we are not doing anything. So we are simply sitting in this home like that. But in fact, when you are making an introspection, this is the time where we are making a thorough introspection ourselves, about our family, about the life, about other things. So we are making so many good, rich value-based decisions. So don't do nothing at all. Here refers the after repeated advice during bear market period is play dead or do nothing. So when the market condition is bad market condition prevails for continuously for relatively for a longer period, at that juncture, it is better to play dead. It is better to play dead or do nothing. Could you understand? So this is nothing but don't do nothing at all, and don't tinker your portfolio. So suppose when we keep quiet, unnecessarily we have to see we are seeing and we are evaluating, review our portfolio and making changes, and such changes may not hold good even in the after full recovery. And then let your investment run. As such, you keep quiet. Let your investment run as such. So that's why that is a strategy called don't do nothing at all. So these are all the certain review. I gave you 5 do's and 5 don'ts. Okay, so as advocated by the COVID-19 to retail investors. So don't try to catch market bottom, and don't review funds now, and don't change investing strategy, and don't get overall defensive, and don't do nothing at all. So thereby we can keep in, but with respect, don't do anything at all. It may vary from with respect to age of the people. So when you are at the verge of retirement, what to do is you have to plan for at least for next 5 years, and for which you have to keep money separately, not allocated for equity investment. So for youngsters, we need not worry about it. We can go for a long-term investment, 8 years, 10 years investment. That's why the mutual fund SIP schemes are gaining a lot of popularity, much popularity even in the lockdown situation, and they are able to break the market and by means of getting more investments. And when you look into this the situation, the panic situation, the statement given by the international global investor and Warren Buffett. So his quote may be very ideally suitable for this. So be fearful when others are greedy. Be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful. So this is a statement he says. And that statement holds good in the present day context for all the retail investors. Be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful. Here, I would like I don't like I don't want to use the word greedy, but there is no other go. Greedy with a limit. No, as we say in the case of risk, calculated risk. Here also, calculated greediness is very much required. Then only we may be able to earn. So that is a legitimate earning. We can make a legitimate earning rather than making a speculations by indulging in all fraudulent practices. So when we have a mindset, definitely as investors, we may not evince interest, and we will not chase through the fast-moving shares, and we may not have developed a kind of herd mentality at all. So that's why at the end, say an advice to the investors based on these revelations. I would like to tell you that. Though it is said, luck favors the brave. That's a statement. Luck favors the brave. It is better to be less aggressive. No, it is better to be less aggressive. When you don't know, don't do. Be cautious and patient. So with this, I would like to conclude my speech on the revelations of COVID-19 to retail investors, because many times I have a strong concern over retail investors. In spite of hectic rules and regulations and investors protection cell and a lot of activities taken up by the SEBI under the investors protection cell, still investors interest is not fully insured, not fully safeguarded. That's why as investors we are burning our finger in many a time. That is because of the extreme kind of greediness that taking place at the institutional level, at the country level, and ultimately the individual investors are facing it. And that's why we have to make a safe game. When you don't know, don't do. Be cautious and patient. With this, I'd like to extend my congratulations to the organizers of this seminar, the webinar. And I'm really thankful to all the online viewers for patiently listening my speech. So to I give an idea about the COVID, then stock market, the trends of stock market, then shift in the behavior of investors. I gave an idea about retail investors, and behavioral biases of individual investors or retail investors, and how such behavioral biases can be overcome by means in the situation in the present in the lockdown situation in the form of telling 5 do's and 5 don'ts. So I hope this webinar will be very useful and fruitful for the youngsters and the new entrant in the stock market. And certainly when we practice it, we may be able to get the fruits of it. With this, I extend my hearty thanks to each and every one of you for your patient listening. Thank you, one and all.
So thank you so much for the very informative session, sir. Now I request Dr. Nagajodi, IQAC Advisory of Patterson College of Arts and Science, take over the session as a moderator.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you, sir. Thank you, Goswami, sir, and thank you, Natarajan, sir, for your insight on investment and investor behavior. We have a couple of questions here, sir. Natarajan, sir, this is a question to you. Is investment in stock market feasible right now? Is the investment in stock market feasible in this situation?
Unable to get you. Tell it again.
Is investment in stock market feasible?
It's a waste.
If it is feasible, is it possible? Will it be advantageous?
Will it be advantageous? That's a question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. The question has been asked to the right person, because I am also not that much interested in equity investment, frankly speaking. But for the sake of knowledge, and I am making some. I am also a retail investor making a smaller investment then and there. But I won't advocate at all times. If you have some surplus, legitimate surplus, you can think of making equity investment. So it's not a wasteful exercise. And that too, don't go for with all greediness. Don't go for day trading and all, where you will be burning finger. It is better to opt the companies who are having strong fundamentals and making a long-term investment decision, and thereby you can make a safe gain. So I have invested long before, some 15-20 years before on Reliance. So that investment fetched me now. I simply forgot it. When I was working in a early institute, Alkapa University of Garikudi, I invested. So simply keeping it for last 15-20 years, now it gives me a good reward. So like that, don't go aggressively. No, when you are having a moderate interest and involvement, certainly it will not be a waste. This is what I would like to say.
I have one more question for you. Why do investors prefer to invest in gold, even though the prices are always a high peak, but still that is seen as a very good investment avenue? So why is gold preferred to be a better investment avenue always?
So I'm unable to get maths, please.
Ma'am, they're asking, even though the prices of gold is increasing, why do investors prefer to invest in gold, even though the prices are at the peak? Why is gold seen as a better investment?
So it's a question about gold investment.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So gold and equity investments are contrary. So whenever equity market fares well, no, the gold may not be attractive, but the reverse will also be true. But when comparing to these two, gold is having edge over others, edge over equity. Gold is having edge over equity because in the equity market, there are a lot of micro and macroeconomic factors which plays a vital role in deciding the price behavior, in ensuring the volatility and the risk quantum and other thing. When compared to that, that volatility, that is the induced volatility or stimulated volatility is comparatively less in the case of gold. And that's why country like India, especially as the consumers, we are preferring gold rather than equity. Because to some extent there is assurance in gold, but whereas in the case of equity, we can zero it easily within no minute. But whereas in the case of gold investment, it won't be zero. It won't be a zero. So that's why gold is still preferable as a best investment for the individual investors, especially in India.
Okay, so thank you. Gurusamy sir, we have a question for you. Dr. Gurusamy sir, we have a question for you.
So, Yanti, you have question now.
Which type of investment, whether physical or financial investment, is going to be impacted? Guruswamy sir, the question to you. Which type of investment, whether physical or financial investment, is going to be impacted positively or negatively? Hello, sir.
Able to give? Where Guruswamy sir is able to give? Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, we are able to hear.
That's fine.
Hear me, sir?
Yes, you are able to hear me.
Yeah.
Yes. Sir,
Yes,
there's a
I'm
question.
answering the question. I'm answering the question.
Yes,
So
sir, yes.
the financial investment
Financial
and the physical investment.
Yes,
I
sir.
think that's what. As of now, financial investments are likely to be very much impacted. In the sense, as Professor Natarajan himself stated, the financial investments are subject to a lot of volatility, lot of ups and downs. But this kind of a investment, this kind of a situation, this kind of a scenario offers a wonderful lifetime opportunity for the equity investor to park their funds in the equity, especially in the Indian equity. Which is not possible, which is not the kind of possibility in the case of physical investment. Physical investment, of course, it has got its own problem in the sense it is not having that kind of liquidity and so on. But given the fact that equities are prone to volatility and so on, but being the volatile instrument, the equities offer the lifetime investment opportunity and therefore they are impacted more. Since they are impacted more, such equity investments provide the investors wonderful lifetime opportunity. That is my answer.
Okay, sir. And there's one more question, sir. There's actually two questions on mutual fund. One is whether mutual fund investments will be profitable in this situation, and the other one is where they're saying mutual them steady growth, but now they see it has gone down. So what should be done regarding that? Whether
I'm not able to hear you. What is it?
Whether investment in
Mutual funds?
Sizable. Hello, sir. Can you hear? Whether investment in mutual funds.
That's right. Okay, fine. Now, if you happen to be an investor in a mutual fund, of course, if you happen to be a person who is starting the SIP new, I think this is again a wonderful opportunity. You can buy the units in bulk at low prices. And if you happen to be the SIP person, contributing regularly to the mutual funds, I would suggest do not exit. This is not the time for you to exit. If you happen to exit, you will lose your money entirely. It is a time for you to maybe add on to your investments. You can augment your investments, and then you can probably try to average your investments and then try to reduce your risk or try to reduce your loss. Therefore, never ever think of exiting it. You continue to be a SIP investor. Yes. And if you happen to be a new investor, I would suggest it's the right time for you to be a self-investor and then to buy bottom fish, the rightly managed companies, and then you try to, as Professor said, you can multiply your money manifold in the years to come. For about another 5 years or 10 years, your returns will be skyrocketing. Yes, madam.
Okay, sir. And
any other question is there?
Yes, sir. They also want to know what about investments in fixed deposits, insurance policies. The participants are concerned about investments in fixed deposits. Should they continue with it?
Fixed deposits, exactly. No. I'm here to tell you very clearly the fact that India is a strong country, and India has a pride of place in the sense its banking sector, banking system, finance system is very safe and sound. And this is being time and again reiterated by the Finance Minister of India, by the Reserve Bank of India Governor. I'm here to join them and tell you, all the listeners, all the participants, be assured that our banking system is the best in the world. And there is no need for you to be panicky about your fixed deposits or maybe saving deposits in a bank. More particularly, there is a fear about the investments, fixed deposit investments in the public sector banks. Do not get bothered, because government is there. Government will not let the banking system to run. the government is there to provide safety and security for the depositors of the money in the banking system, and therefore there is no need for anybody to worry about the fixed deposits in a bank. Be assured and be confident about it.
Yes, yes. So thank you.
Hello,
sir.
sir. I would like to endorse. Sir?
This COVID-driven phenomenon is only purely temporary. This is not the end of the world.
Yeah.
We're going to see a bigger world, a bigger India, a better India after some times. Maybe from 6 months from now or 1 year from now, it will be a totally different India, a blossomed India. And therefore, do not get panicky. If you hold your deposits in a bank, continue to hold it. Do not exit. Do not exit from anything. Do not exit from fixed deposit. Do not exit from SIP in a mutual fund. It's not time for you to exit. Mass exiting will lead to mass collapsing.
Okay, okay. So thank
Any
you,
other
sir.
question?
Natarajan, sir, we have a question, and that would be the last question of this session. Natarajan, sir, can you hear me, sir? Hello, Natarajan, sir. Natarajan, sir, can you hear me, sir? Natarajan, sir, can you hear me?
I think Sir is left him.
No, no, he's there, sir. Sir is there. Please unmute him. He's muted. Unmute, sir. Duresh, sir, please unmute Natarajan, sir.
Professor Natarajan, please unmute, sir. Unmute.
Duresh, sir, you need to unmute Natarajan, sir.
Able to hear me?
Yeah, yes, sir. Sir, yes, yes, sir, yes, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I'm able to hear you. Yeah, fine.
You, sir, that would be the last question of the session. What is your suggestion to overcome the behavioral biases? Like, what is your suggestion to overcome the behavioral biases like bandwagon effect or cognitive biases while making our investment decisions?
So behavioral biases will be there. It cannot be avoided because we are not living in an environment wherein we are not getting information, adequate information, timely information, and other things. So that's why many a time we are making ill-informed investment decision. Ill-informed investment decision. Many times we are making ill-informed investment decision. So that thereby we are landing in trouble. We are getting trapped. So when the market, that is what the efficient market, no? In the efficient market hypothesis says that when the investors are able to get information, when they are making timely decision, so certainly they can make a safe game. So that paradox, it's a paradoxical, it will not hold good in the present day context because the market has a lot of anomalies or a lot of biases. It cannot be totally avoided. In the midst of it, we have to do our best. In the midst of it, we have to do our best.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
And then, madam, I would like, for all audience, I would like to tell you in endorsing the views of Dr. Gurusamy with regard to the investment opportunities for other investment avenues like deposits and other thing. Okay, so as a country, we have to look into our recent budget announcement also. So when you look into the budget announcement, definitely most of the investment avenues which are having tax benefit, especially mutual fund, then LIC and other thing, all the tax concessional based investment avenues are where will be losing its charm because in the budget announcement, all deductions have been removed. So definitely in the forthcoming year, yes, or even in the next, even now, when there is a query whether we can follow the old regime or new regime. The advisors are suggesting us it is better to go for old regime, to file a return, to file an income tax return, because many investments are losing the tax concession. So that's why for a retail, I am telling especially from the retail investor point of view, it may not be lucrative to prefer too many investment avenues. We have to be really choosy, because many a time as individual investors, we make investment mainly for the purpose of availing income tax concession, income tax benefit, tax benefit. So that the tax leverage is reduced. That's it.
Okay, sir.
That also you have to keep in mind while preferring investment avenues.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir, and Natarajan, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Wonderful opportunity. Exciting.
Yeah, really.
Ma'am, a few questions, sir, 1 second. Few questions raised from our Zoom viewer. Shall we raise there?
Go ahead.
Dr. Chitralika, ma'am, you can raise the questions.
Sir, can we now invest in debt instruments? Is it possible, or is it advisable to invest in debt instruments?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Is it for me?
Yes, sir.
Fine. You can always invest. I think debt instruments, short-term debt instruments, you can go for it. I think debt market as such faces a lot of trouble now, as of now. So I would rather advise you to park your funds instead in a bank deposit instead of doing debt kind of a fund.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So in the case of debt market, as an investor,
yes, sir.
Your earning motivation is limited. So that's why there won't be much risk when compared to equity. There you are aspiring for more return, and that's why you are eventually taking more risk. That's why preferring a debt instrument is better in the present day context.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So next question from Professor Nishant.
Sir.
Professor Nishant, you can start.
Yes, sir. Sir, wonderful session from both of you. It was really informative, sir. So one question I had, sir, I had invested, I don't call it as investment, in insurance I had done in Max, New York. So I've been investing for around 20,000 every month, every year. So now almost 7 years I've invested, but now it shows my value is almost 60,000. So what shall I go about with it, sir?
For me, it is.
Anyone.
Of course, it happens, especially when you are investing in a insurance-linked product, So they would have invested that money, and I should also tell you that substantial part of the money that you pay is being taken by the investment managers by way of management fee, service fee, and so on. Besides the fact that they also stand to lose many times because their investments are subject to the market volatility. For example, they might be investing in debt instruments or maybe in equity instruments also. So therefore, whatever reflection that you have, maybe 80,000 rupees in your account, is reflective of the actual market conditions. Therefore, maybe you have, I think when you look at the terms and conditions, I believe you would have given more, composition to equity investment, I believe. So probably you may have to adjust, so have less of exposure to equity and more of exposure to debt instruments. Probably if you have that kind of an exposure, that kind of a composition, probably your whatever money that you are contributing every year will remain safe, will remain strong, will also expand, will also multiply, I believe.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Good luck to you.
Professor Nishant. Now, Dr. Badruddin Ahmad, you can raise the question.
Our educational system, then why should people go abroad and spend lakhs and lakhs?
Yes, tell me. Hello?
Ma'am, your question, ma'am.
All the questions teachers. Now I request Ms. Selvi ma'am to deliver the vote. Raji ma'am? Yes, ma'am, I can go ahead. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. I think It's a great honor to propose vote of thanks on this occasion. Let me first of all start. I give glory to the Almighty God, making today FPT program a resounding success. We are
Hello,
grateful to
Badiri
our
Nagamal,
Secretary
Dr.
Sir,
Badiri Nagamal,
Mr.
is there?
ABM K. Shanmugam, and our beloved Principal Sir, Major Dr. I. Baburatnam, for his steward support, vision, and commitment. On behalf of Kavichi College, I wish to express my gratitude to our special guest, Dr. D. Udra, Vice Principal, Remote Vice College, who, despite in her busy schedule, has found time to grace this occasion. Thank you, ma'am, for making excellent presentation and making this webinar a very meaningful and interesting one. My heartfelt thanks to the Com department for their guidance and support. I owe special thanks to our faculty friends who have worked hard to ensure this FTP program.
Thank you.
Hello. Hello, do we have any other questions? Okay, sir. Thank you, Guruswamy sir and Natarajan sir, for answering all the questions. And we got lots of feedback on Zoom as well as on YouTube. Positive. All have said that the session was very interesting, very informative, and the questions have been convincingly answered. So thank you so much, sir. So as we come to the end of the session, I would request Mr. Daniel, IQAC coordinator, to propose the vote of thanks. Before that, participants kindly be informed that a feedback link will be shared with you in person. You need to submit the feedback to be eligible to receive your e-certificate. Kindly be informed on that. So I now request Mr. Daniel to propose the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for being here today. It is my honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks. At this juncture, I thank Almighty God for making this day a possibility, because without His blessing, nothing can go ahead. And when He blesses, He always blesses the best. Next, I thank the resource persons for this day, Dr. S. Gurusamy, Professor and Head, Department of Commerce, University of Madras, for his wonderful discourse on investment strategies post-COVID-19. Sir, your knowledge of facts and figures were astounding, and being a personal lover of the English language, so was your command over the language equally. Thank you, sir. And I also thank Dr. P. Natarajan, Professor, Department of Commerce, School of Management, Pondicherry University, for being with us today and handling the second session, Revelations of COVID-19 to Retail Investors. Sir, your knowledge of the various concepts and the models that you shared with us were very exciting and invigorating. In fact, we had people asking for you to repeat the same. To those people also, I would like to inform you, you can watch the same lecture on YouTube again. And at this time, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the management of our college, our Reverend Brother Dr. Johnson Rex Dhanapal, our Director and Secretary, our Academic Director, Dr. Fatima Vasant, our Principal, Dr. Usha George, our Vice Principal, Dr. R.K. Mary Gita Das, and the organizers of this esteemed forum, Dr. B. Meena, Associate Professor and Head, Department of Commerce, and Dr. Nagajodi, IQAC Advisor, and my friends, Dr. Durai Arasan and Mrs. Mary Louisa. At this time, I'd like to also thank all the various participants who have joined us via Zoom and via YouTube. Both of these platforms have been very useful for us to understand new knowledge today and to share our ideas among the educational community of teachers. So therefore, we look forward to further such sessions, and I thank you all for being here once again. God bless you and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you all. Thank you all for these wonderful sessions on this needed topic of this hour. In this juncture, I want to share that our college, we extremely happy to share this information in this forum. Our college, Petition College, ranked as #1 and in Tamil Nadu and 27th in India among the 100 non-autonomous colleges. We thank God and all our faculty of our college and all the stakeholders of the college also. And in this juncture, I want to share online admissions are started for both Shift 1 and Shift 2 Petition College. In Shift 1, BA English, BBA, BCom Accounting Finance, BCom CS, BCom General, BCA Computer Application, BSc Computer Science, BSc Mathematics, BSc Viscom, BSc Psychology, and Social Work in Shift 1. And Shift 2, BA Journalism, BCom Accounting Finance, BCom General, BCom CS, BCA, BSc Computer Science, BSc Electronic Media. And we have postgraduate programs also in Shift 1, MA English, MA HRM, MCom General, MSW. And in Shift 2, the postgraduate programs are MSc Applied Psychology, MSc Mathematics. And research programs are MPhil Commerce and MPhil Social Work. So you can log in for the admissions. You can tell it to our circle. Whoever need admission in the Petition College, they have to log in www.petitioncollege.ac.in. Thank you all.